Way back in 1999, a game released that featured a different take on the pocket monsters that had swept the world. Instead of gotta catch them all, it was about snapping them all, or capturing them in a different way, in photos within their natural habitats. For years, Pokemon has been a dominating intellectual property that has captured the imaginations of multiple generations. While this game wasn't the first time the world had seen these iconic creatures brought to life in 3D, it did offer up something unique to the franchise that fleshed them out in a whole new light. This game was Pokemon Snap, and it has truly been, and still is, one of my favorite games of all time. With the release of new Pokemon Snap, I thought it only fitting to talk about this new entry in the ongoing Pokemon saga with my subjectivity on full display. While I have always done my best to provide as objective criticisms as possible to the media I cover, when it really comes down to it, every review, article, video, or critique is unavoidably subjective. So, from here on out, I'm going to lean into that and try to still provide you with all the information you require along with my own personal feelings on the subject in question. Also, this review will be filled with information, footage, and gameplay of things that many would consider to be spoilers for the title. If you are sensitive to such things, then I suggest you avoid this video and come back to it after you've seen the credits. But let's face it, this channel isn't called Timely Reviews, so there's a good chance you've played the game and beaten it already. Now, I humbly present to you my review of new Pokemon Snap. I know this video is going to be longer than most of the reviews here on the channel, so I won't string you along until the end of the video if you want to know if this game is worth your time. New Pokemon Snap is a competent and relaxing ride that has a lot of replayability. For me, this game will always be compared to its predecessor, and thankfully this one runs much longer than the original. I can usually get through the first game in about an hour and a half if I'm taking my time. On the other hand, new Pokemon Snap took me about 16 hours to complete, and I was still finding new areas and Pokemon up until the very end. That's not to mention the new course challenges, camera setting, and optional requests that will personally balloon out the game time for me that comes after you've witnessed the final encounter. Having given you the basic information, it is now time for an extreme deep dive into this game and all of its mechanics. Like I mentioned before, it is impossible for me to divorce myself from the first entry in the now ongoing Pokemon Snap franchise, so I shall be drawing comparisons to that game. Is that fair to either game? Most likely not, but I just can't help but do it, and I'm hoping it provides a unique insight for you at home. As Maria would say, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. You choose from a handful of pre-selected avatars to embody throughout the cutscenes of the game. You're new to the Lental region and have come to work as an assistant at Professor Mirror's laboratory. Here, you quickly become ensconced in the professor's work as he tasks you with photographing all the Pokemon in the nearby park and areas. His wannabe assistant Rita is also there as she hopes this summer trip becomes full-time work for her at the lab. Pretty bold, Rita, but I respect it. Comparatively, in the first game, you play as Todd Snap, who is hired by Professor Oak to take pictures of Pokemon on Pokemon Island for a Pokemon report. This framing is pretty good, but when compiled with the intro cutscene of Todd trying to get a picture of an elusive Pokemon, it becomes even better. Our job is not only to work for Oak, but to find that Pokemon. This encounter gives us a drive to motivate us along our journey. Feels like we're playing as a mercenary in a movie who takes the job only because it might get us close to a target we want revenge on. Switching back to new Pokemon Snap, which honestly they should have just called it Pokemon Snap 2, we hop into our newly dubbed Neo 1 for our excursion. Basically the same in functionality as the Zero 1 from the first game, as it acts as an all-in-one vehicle to traverse any terrain and keep the occupants safe from any harm. Later on, we come to find out that Todd Snap from the original game helped design and build this upgraded version. That would have been a nice nod for the fans alone, but they go a step further and make him an actual character in the game. Sure, he's often relegated to popping up on your screen during missions and standing still during most encounters, but an aged-up Todd in the game and cutscenes is such a great touch. However, Todd doesn't show up alone. He has a protege. Phil. Ugh, this guy. Basically, Phil is like Naruto from the early days, and we are Sasuke. Like, for those who aren't into anime, this means that Phil likes to shout and say things like, "Man, you always get the best shots," and "I'll get even better pictures than you." This brings the cast of characters, including you, up to 5, which seems a bit unnecessary, especially when they all FaceTime in to tell you how you're doing mid-mission. Don't get me wrong, it can be nice to have the validation that you just took a good picture, but you get the sense that none of them are doing anything and are all just sitting around watching you take photos of Pokemon, silently judging you. Where are the callouts when I take a picture of a rock or something that isn't Geodude, huh? I digress, but every time I see Phil, I think, well, he's just here to make me feel better about myself, but I still wish he wasn't. One Legionnaire had mentioned that it would be cool to see him taking pictures at the same time as us, or perhaps he's the one setting course records we need to beat in the endgame. I don't know, just some ideas, Nintendo. Free of charge. One last thing I want to mention about the lab and camp area. I think it's really cool that you can actually take pictures in this little space. A low stakes and unique zone just for practice and to see some extra Pokemon you wouldn't normally see otherwise. That being said, I joked about this before the game came out, but I guess someone at Bandai Namco, HAL Laboratory, or Pax Sofnica is listening because the accursed Trubbish is in this zone. Like, why? No! No! We'll get to Pokemon design later, but seriously, Trubbish? Speaking of zones, the first game had 7 courses to choose from where you would travel on a predetermined path, snapping shots with little deviation, until you acquired more items with which to interact with the world. In New Pokemon Snap, Professor Mirror takes a page out of Oak's book, setting up teleportation points you can magically transport to as you discover more islands. I do miss the goal gates at the end of the levels a little though. Makes it feel more mechanical and sci-fi. A little gripe, but I'm trying to lean into my feelings. Anywho, New Pokemon Snap boasts more than 10 courses that spice up the variety by adding branching paths and day-night options. These are wonderful features that allow you to see different Pokemon in different locations, or entirely new ones that only show up at certain times of the day. Branching paths pop up as you scan various areas, or when Pokemon make one for you. My personal favorite would have to be the Bidoof constructed dam, which allows you to get some really cool shots of a Swanna leading some ducklets. To add another layer onto this, each course now has a level incorporated. The in-game reasoning behind this is that the Pokemon are more comfortable with you gliding past them, taking pictures, and generally disturbing their lives. For instance, a Houndoom might run up to you on your first outing in a specific area and growl at you, but after hitting level 2 in the same zone, it will just simply saunter by. This added element also affords for different poses and instances, which, again, is great. This is the type of complexity I had hoped for in a sequel to one of my favorite games of all time. The various biomes are a mix of relatively similar areas to the ones found in the first title, with some crazy new ones thrown in for good measure. Pushing the limits of the Neo 1, the Lentil Seafloor and Elsewhere Forest provide excursions to locales that are ones I didn't think the franchise would touch. Riding around underwater adds a whole new dynamic to water Pokemon that are usually more difficult to interact with. While the forest teleports you to and fro between creepy fog-coated areas and spaces that fall into different seasons. I do think New Pokemon Snap missed a trick though here with Elsewhere. This could have been the creepy ghost level, had they leaned into it just a little bit further. Just imagine a spooky forest that eventually led to an abandoned research outpost. Once inside, you find the place is replete with Haunter, Ghastly, and Gengar. They joyfully follow you around to try to scare you in an amusing way. None of the biomes are bad per se, but I felt that the Founja jungle was a bit off. Firstly, the place is overrun with Lipards, somewhat like the Blushing Beach has too many Executors. One of the marks of brilliance in the original was the sparing usage of certain types of Pokemon, which is probably a limitation due to the technical aspects of the N64. When you have so many of one type in a level found in the new game, it feels less organic in a way, but that might just be something personal. The jungle does feel dense and claustrophobic, but I wish it had more of a larger-than-life feel. Taller trees, maybe more vines, I don't know. But something about this particular level felt a little bit lacking. Fireflow Volcano, Sweltering Sands, and Shivering Snowfields are all top-notch though. One thing I started to notice are these transitional periods during the levels where Pokemon are oddly sparse. This might be a loading screen tactic, but when you are sharply going uphill or down, you can be sure that you probably won't see much of anything, but occasionally you will. Naturally, you would not see Pokemon in every single part of the world, but those moments really reminded me that I was on a predetermined path, taking me out of the experience slightly. Up until this point, I felt like I was going through the motions and was checking off all the boxes. While I enjoyed most of the courses, none of them felt exceptionally gripping. But then I hit Outaway Cave. This is what I'm talking about. One aspect of the original Snap that I'm ever grateful for was how the levels were connected. Each one bled into the next either by your hand or just your journey throughout the Pokemon Island. With new Pokemon Snap, however, each island is home to 1 or 2 biomes tops and shares a connection underground. It has more of a one-piece feel in that each place is wholly unique in a natural way, even though they occupy a relatively close proximity. Hold up. Was that 2 anime references in one video? Well, I guess the original Pokemon anime is part of all this, so it fits. What I'm getting at is this: I miss that interconnected feeling and strange present-day human abandoned nature of some of the old courses. There are ruins that are teased at throughout the game, but you don't personally open them up yourself. Opening up a path that you made by getting an Electrode to explode, or a Porygon to hit a switch back in the original felt incredibly gratifying, as opposed to finding a new teleportation point. However, the more I poured over the levels, I found not only branching paths, but hidden ones as well. This led to incredibly exciting moments with rare Pokemon and events you would not normally come across. I was surprised by how tucked away some of these moments were. All that being said, while I'm out here doing all the work, what is Professor Mary even doing back at the lab? Better yet, what are any of you doing? I'm out here trying to discover these things about Pokemon while you're just lobbing requests at me for specific pictures. See? I knew it. They're just hovering around watching me work. Oh, correction, Mir was working on a few things, and we do need to talk about them. Back in the olden times of the late 90s, we had a few tools at our disposal for interacting with Pokemon. Pokemon Food, Flute, Pester Balls, and a dash engine. It wasn't a lot, but it got the job done. The apple-shaped food would lure Pokemon out of hiding, or might cause them to fight one another if placed properly. The Flute would stir sleeping Pokemon from slumber or cause other Pokemon to dance, performing magical feats. And then, there was Professor Oak's magnum opus, the Pester Ball. What sort of mad scientist is this guy? A Pokeball-shaped device that would drive creatures from their homes or frustrated them with its noxious gas. The dash engine was useful in speeding through levels and getting shots of Pokemon at different moments. All of these return in new Pokemon Snap in one form or another, along with a new scan feature that alerts Pokemon and provides options to go down other paths and gives you more information on the area. I said all the items returned from the original except the Pester Ball. In its place, however, is the Illumina Orb, which is at the very heart of new Pokemon Snap's story. You see, Mirror brought you here to find and document special Pokemon known as Illumina Pokemon and the Illumina phenomenon. This occurrence has led to the appearance of special crystal blooms throughout the island. Once studied, the specific orbs of light for that island are placed in your inventory in order to light up the crystal blooms or coax Pokemon to perform a predetermined action. While in theory, this is a nice way to set aside the abusive/sadistic Pester Ball while adding to the lore of the islands, the execution is a different story. Once a Pokemon is, what I call, juiced up, it may do something extraordinary. However, they then retain the glow of that specific orb for a time, meaning that to get some of the best shots of your favorite Pokemon, you have to take pictures of them when they are glowing a completely different color. This luminescent hue doesn't always look great on every Pokemon for a given island. A green glowing Charmander detracts from the classic look, and a purple coated Blastoise using Hydro Pump just seems odd to me. Perhaps just a flash of that to let the player know that they have been successful in landing the orb would be a nice middle ground. Maybe I'm the only person to be bothered by this, but I thought it worth mentioning all the same. Also, I'm still whipping this new age Pokemon food, aka Fluff Fruit, at unassuming little faces that wince in pain every time. At least the Pester Ball broke on contact, but these pieces of food are anything but fluffy. Oh, and lastly, I have to mention the atrocious song that plays this melody that is complete regression from the first game's Flute. In the first game, the Flute had a few different tunes that broke up the monotony. How did Todd play this and take pictures at the same time? The world will never know. However, here in 2021, we hear the same horrible little jingle over and over. and over again. The implementation of this wouldn't be so bad, but anytime I see a new Pokemon, I'm throwing Fluff Fruit at it, along with Illumina Orbs and this little ditty, hoping to get some sort of meaningful response. All this item talk leads us neatly into a combination of Pokemon and the Illumina phenomenon with this special Illumina Pokemon courses. Like I mentioned way back at the start of this video, Todd Snap in the original game was trying to snap a pic of a certain Pokemon, Mew. His whole journey had led up to that moment, and there was an entire course dedicated to that mischievous little guy. To get to that point, however, you had to go back through each course using your items to take pictures of natural or mechanically generated Pokemon likenesses. A little odd, but it made reaching that last level all the more special. Throughout our journey in New Pokemon Snap, we come across 6 courses incredibly reminiscent to that encounter with Mew. The first time out, you typically just follow that Pokemon around by itself and take pictures of it interacting with crystal blooms you light up, or just by throwing Illumina Orbs at their respective faces. In a way, I suppose this makes you feel a little bit like throwing a Pokeball at them, but once you get at least one alright picture of the Illumina Pokemon in question, the course, like all the others, levels up and you get to see that Pokemon interact with other nearby Pokemon. I was really happy to see that these courses weren't just one and done, but rather evolved over time. They aren't necessarily my favorite to play again and again, but they have much more depth than trying to break Mew's stupid little light orb and land that perfect shot. All of the Pokemon courses and items come back to one thing: pure judgment from the professor himself. Oak's approach felt more like a game show with upbeat music and him exclaiming things at every turn. Mir's tactic is a bit more reserved and not nearly as entertaining. Like with the first game, there's a grading scale that takes things like framing, pose, technique, and other Pokemon in the picture into account. There were a few instances where I had a Pokemon dead center and the game didn't register anything, or they picked a Pokemon in the background for the subject, a minor annoyance that would just result in me belittling the professor in real life. More layers are again added in that each picture of Pokemon, depending on what they are doing, fall into 4-star categories. This is another addition I really like, because it's an easy way to get points for a certain course if you don't have a, let's say, a 3-star picture of a certain Pokemon, so those points go on uncontested. The photos you have graded and others you choose to save in your personal album can also be touched up and altered. This is another fun feature that will play very well on social media. It's also cool to see the same Pokemon from different courses pop up in the book, which was something typically only Pikachu was known for in the past game. By the way, there is way less Pikachu here, just so you know. Not saying it's a big deal, but in the original, Pikachu had a ton of the spotlight and incredibly specific poses. Here, the love is shared a bit more, which is a good change of pace, although I did feel the distinct lack of Pikachu presence. Lastly, I want to talk about the overall presentation of the game along with the Pokemon themselves. It ran pretty well on the Switch with minimal texture pop-in. I did crank up the camera movements because Pokemon can fly at you from any direction at any time. Memorizing these moments is key to getting stellar shots. One aspect I found a bit lacking was the anemic soundtrack though. I think it was very intentional, however, as this game seems to be more about relaxing and taking pictures at a more leisurely pace. The score screen music is about as compelling as the hot tracks found in any business elevator. Comparatively, in Pokemon Snap, the game's music was so upbeat and adventurous, perfectly encapsulating all areas of the island. I'll concede that Out Away Cave's tune does remind me of how the music can strike a wonderful tone. This might come as a shock to you listening to this, but I adore the Generation 1 Pokemon designs. They weren't all winners, mind you, but they were iconic and have remained with me for many years. Seeing some of the Alolan variations was nice too. However, why do I see an Alolan Raichu on the same level as a regular Executor? It doesn't make any sense! Generations 2 and 3 were also ones I look back on fondly, Tyranitar and Absol being some of my favorites. Seeing one I recognized and long admired genuinely had me hooting and hollering. But man, oh man, have I been away from Pokemon for too long. Like, what the heck is this? Or this? In the mainline series, the design of one of your fighters was only a part of what made them special, but in a Pokemon Snap game, the design is everything. I don't blame this game for the actual designs of the Pokemon. That isn't their job, but someone or a group must have chosen which ones were in and which were out. What's even worse is that you have to stare up close at some of these monstrosities for extended periods of time. How some of them made it into this game, I'll never know. Just makes me sad to think of all the other excellently designed pocket monsters that got bumped out for Flatfish over here, or the freaking ice cream cone. Don't put that ice cream cone in this game if you don't have a lick-a-tongue chasing it around. That being said, I really enjoyed seeing the various evolutions of Eevee littered throughout the maps. It felt like a nice cohesive touch that gave you a purpose to find them all. Well, Legionnaires, I hope you found this lengthy form of review useful, entertaining, or perhaps even both. I'm happy that new Pokemon Snap exists. Is it perfect? No. Does it supplant the original in my highly subjective brain? Nothing ever could. But it does a solid job of recapturing the feeling of the original to an extent, and offers up a nice entry point for new fans of the franchise. If Nintendo is listening, please, I beg you, can I get a remaster of the original? I'll pay full price, please! Legionnaires, thank you so much for hanging out with me here today and listening to this kind of longer format review. I'd love to know from you guys if you really enjoyed this style, or if you prefer the ones we do in the past where they're a bit shorter and more condensed. Please let me know down in the comments, or over on Twitter or Instagram, or where the heck ever. It doesn't matter to me. I want to thank everybody for watching all the way to the end of this, but I also really want to thank the patrons for hanging out and supporting the channel. That means so much to me. Thank you so much, guys. And until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome. Bye-bye.